seasons change.
Hi, I'm Greg.
And I'm Betsy.
And we host a podcast called Going on 30.
Each month, Greg and I discuss movies that were nominated or should have been nominated for Best Picture 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky business, but we'd be losing it if we didn't discuss the legend of Oscar caliber movies.
That's a little dramatic, but sure. We give our takes on one movie each month, debate its lasting legacy, and talk about its place in cinema history.
You know, Betsy, in these days of thunder, when far and away a few good men are going through life with their eyes wide shut to the firm hold that The Color of Money has over the film industry, it's just a night and day difference between the beautiful magnolia of the top guns of the business and the oblivion of the edge of tomorrow of American-made franchise.
Okay, all right. I think I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm having a cocktail while I give you my Minority Report on the War of the Worlds.
Stop it. You are listing just Tom Cruise movies. I'm done.
That is just Mission Impossible. Ghost Protocol.
Okay, so listen to Going on 30 whenever you get the Poppy College beat.
Jerry Maguire, the Mummy. Jack Reacher, the Vanilla Sky Rain Man.
God, you have a deep, deep problem, my friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Knight, and I like watching, thinking about, and talking about movies. One of the great things about starting your own podcast is that there are some days where you actually get to talk to the creators of those movies. Sometimes more than one. Again, this is one of those days. This month, I got the chance to interview two filmmakers working on two different projects. We're pairing them up just like we did last month so that you get twice the entertainment in this episode. We'll start with the Lotfi Nathan interview. Lotfi is the director of a new film called The Carpenter's Son. Letterboxd will tell you a remote village in Roman-era Egypt explodes into spiritual warfare when a carpenter, his wife, and their child are targeted by supernatural forces. What I'll tell you is that very vague description is a Jesus story. Spoilers. This is a movie based on the infancy gospel of Thomas. Not the Gospel of Thomas, which is its own thing, but another work that tells stories that take place during Jesus' childhood. What makes the infancy gospel of Thomas notable is that the boy Jesus in that text is not always the best person. There are several examples of Jesus using supernatural powers in strange and sometimes cruel ways in that story. This film takes that idea and inserts it into a horror narrative in sometimes cool, sometimes confounding ways. Obviously, there's no shortage of religious horror, but there's certainly few that actually have a Jesus character in the narrative. And that's something that does set The Carpenter's Son apart. I would say that the overall vibe feels like a YA version of Last Temptation. I don't think that's bad, but it is odd and definitely worth digging into with Lotfi. Oh, and to add to the craziness, Nick Cage is here as the titular carpenter. Speaking of the director, Lotfi Nathan, a quick bio before the interview. Lotfi's been making movies for a while, going back to his feature debut, 12 O'Clock Boys, in 2013. He was born in Egypt, but raised in England. He comes from a Coptic tradition, something that informs his interest in this project, and something that we discuss at one point in the interview. All in all, he was a really nice guy, and I'll be curious to see how this movie is received. So what happens when a filmmaker views a Gnostic text through a horror lens? Find out when I keep things under the stole with Lotfi Nathan. But first, here's a trailer.
What awaits us when we turn at last to death? Let my faith endure. faith. My only strength to bear against the devil itself. For years, we live in hiding, driven from every home. He bears a power he cannot understand, a power I cannot contain.
Is he my father?
You put that in your mind. Do you want to know a secret? I know one that can free you.
Who are you?
You know who I am.
Is he from your angels or from demons?
You were always afraid, greatly afraid.
My faith has been shattered!
I am the accuser of life. I am the adversary. And why am I here?
To torment me.
Yes.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, Lotfi, how are you?
Nice to meet you. Doing fine, thanks.
Good, good. I got to tell you, these junket things, they've become labyrinthine and they're send you from one Zoom room to another to another. I'm so glad I finally made it to my destination.
Oh, yeah. Glad you made it, too.
Hey, we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm hoping to just jump right into questions, if that's okay with you, and I'll record an intro like separately and stuff.
Okay.
I'm just curious to start, like, when were you aware of the infancy gospel of Thomas, and what inspired the idea to make a movie about that text?
Yeah. Well, I was raised Coptic Christian, and I always had so my family, I used to go to church as a kid and knew the stories, and always was interested in the art as well and the imagery. My dad is a very big reader of religious history and interested in antiquity and religious texts, sort of for his own pleasure. He's not religious himself, but he introduced me to the infancy gospel of Thomas. I knew nothing about the Apocrypha, and that immediately clicked to me as a film. I thought that would make a great film. And somehow, if you squint your eyes on it, it's an origin story, and it's something that hadn't been tapped before in a movie, as far as I really can tell, at least in a way that a film that I would want to go see. So I thought, this is irresistible. So I just wanted to go for it. And then on top of that, the genre element that I saw as an opportunity was by way of looking at the text objectively, and then just thinking that much of the Old Testament and the Bible itself is horrific,
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that that's part of the power in this story, is seeing both dimensions of that and the understanding of punishment and consequence. So anyway, that was the starting point.
Well, no, 1,000%. You've actually hit on two avenues that I wanted to go down, but one of the conversations was this idea of genre. Like,
Yeah.
I remember way back in like the 90s, early 2000s, like there was an X-Files episode on the Nephilim angels from like Genesis 6. It was like
Wow.
these sort of like strange angels that like sort of came down and were involved in humanity and stuff like that, which leads into the flood story. But it was such like a weird pull for like the X-Files to grab, and it really had these horrific elements to it. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, they left no stone unturned. Amazing show. And I remember it was so scary to me as a kid, I couldn't even watch it. My brother loved it though.
Yeah, I think that there is something natural about that, because as as I was watching your movie, I was also thinking of recent examples that I think are sort of in the avenue of what you're talking about. Like Saint Maud by Rose Glass, or
Yeah.
The First Omen from last year. You know, just kind of gnarly movies, right? But it kind of feels like religious storytelling sometimes lends itself to horror as a genre.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think you think about the tradition in Christian art of depicting those things. Could imagine the Last Judgment, and
Hmm.
even Dante's Inferno. There's like books that deep dives into what those places felt like and looked like, and that duality. I think it's an important thing to show. I mean, I can see why on the surface that effort seems controversial, but I actually think it's kind of a strength in
Yeah.
the story and the legacy of Christian art.
I agree with you. I think another person that would agree with you is Martin Scorsese. When I was watching your film, like The Last Temptation was what was going through my mind as I
Mhm.
was watching it. And I just wonder, like, as you're making this film, are you influenced by other sort of biblical epics or Bible stories? Do you have reference points that you're thinking of as you're making this movie?
Yeah, yeah, different films, not necessarily biblical epics, but I mean, I loved Last Temptation of Christ, and I realized as I was going further in the script that there were some similar thematic things that I was exploring, even just the idea that Jesus wrestling with doubt,
Hmm.
this simple thing that already, that's another aspect of controversy that I think is unavoidable in this case. There are just many sects of Christianity that would not buy the idea that Jesus could have had any kind of uh, human frailty or weakness in his mind,
Right.
But that's what Last Temptation is all about,
Mhm.
and I think that this is similar that way, at least as far as the theme.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the things that is a striking similarity, and this is, I kind of want to talk to you about how you work with actors.
Hmm.
So, you know, the devotion that Nicolas Cage shows in this film as the Carpenter, it's sort of akin to the Harvey Keitel, the Judas character, right? It's this idea of sort of this deep passion and this kind of, I think I know how the world works, and then all of that gets upended
Yeah.
when you're working with an actor like Nicolas Cage, who obviously sort of has a reputation for big moments and stuff like that. Everyone kind of has this image of him in their head. How do you two work together on crafting that performance? Do you just kind of let him go, or is he open to like how you want to craft what that character does and what his motivations are?
Oh, he was very open. And there were so many conversations prior to shooting where we were just discussing the character, and I think there was just a sort of shared understanding in the first read of the script that he had. I think he talked about sincerity a lot the first time we spoke on the phone.
Mm.
That being what he wanted to approach this with, and I think, but he's got a thing that no other actor really does. He's got totally his own brand of it, and but that thing is very sincere, it's very genuine. And that's what I was able to witness and really appreciated watching him perform.
Yeah.
Um, he doesn't take it lightly, this taking on this role, and but I just think he did it with a lot of care.
Yeah, I mean, another one is Noah Jupe, right? Like, gosh, what an actor. I remember seeing him in Honey Boy and
Yeah.
thinking like, wow, this is what an actor. There are ways of doing temptation stories that I think feel a little forced, and here it felt a little like a dance. Like, how did you think about the way that the Satan character and Yeshua sort of like interact with each other?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing some interviews earlier today with Noah, and he was putting it really well that there's a sort of too close intimacy. There's an intimacy between Jesus and Satan in the film, and I think that that has to do with his empathy. As I think both of them are drawn to each other for very different reasons, but it does create a bond.
Hmm.
I think that uh, Jesus wanting to be near the sinners, and his uh, intense sense of empathy and understanding, of seeing the darkness in people as well and trying to cleanse it, that may be like intuitive before he's even old enough to understand that. Um, then also Satan's character, which spent a good deal of time trying to think, what does that character want? Where are they coming from? Like any other. And I think that there is some kind of retribution or equilibrium that could be found in gaining Jesus's trust
Hmm.
and affection, after being cast out of heaven by God the Father. Um, that to me was very interesting and made for directions for both of those actors to come together. But at the same time, they represent very different things, so there's this nice dynamic between them.
Right. Yeah. And you're so right about it being a rich text because one's ultimate goal is violence and the other one's ultimate goal is love. And it's going to be love that ultimately beats the violence, right? Which is,
Yeah.
it's a really powerful image that you have. Spoilers at the end. um, I do, I don't have a whole lot more time, but I do have this question of, just Gnostic texts, apocryphal texts in general. Most Christians, I think we get a sense of this now in our modern history, especially after the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls and all of that stuff, that it's just such a wealth of these ancient texts that exists out there, but they were so, the Christian church obviously did such a good job of canonizing what are the real texts and sort of pushing everything else away. Um, do you see these as potentially a rich source of sort of storytelling, filmmaking, and what do you think would be the hesitancy to sort of stay away from them?
Good question. I mean, it's dangerous material in a way, if I was to do a one-to-one adaptation of the infancy gospel, I don't think it would be anything but a skewering
Right.
of religion, and it's not my intention. I think that it just depends on what you're trying to gather. I think that there's a reason that a lot of that text didn't make the cut. The infancy gospel is actually a lot more brutal than this film is. I tried to at least tether it to for Jesus to arrive at where we typically know him to be in the New Testament by the end. But I think it all depends. I mean, as far as if it should be part of the canon and any of that, that's not for me to say. I don't know, like, about the legitimacy of this, but it's interesting. That's all I know.
Hmm.
It's even like my family being Coptic Orthodox, which is very uh, strict sect, and very devout, and they refute these texts, but at the same time, they have an early copy of the infancy gospel in the Coptic Museum in Cairo because it's still of interest somehow. So there's a strange gray area where I
Hmm.
think a lot of Christians are interested in the existence of that stuff, but they're not supposed to take lessons from it. So it's just that gray area that is interesting to work in. But again, depends on what your angle is.
Yeah. Yeah, I always liken it to it's sort of like guilty pleasure. It's like the comic book section of the Bible or something. It's like these fun
Yeah, yeah.
stories that, man, you love to sort of dig into because of the quirkiness of them or the radical ideas of them. But like, there's something about them that feels dangerous, I think, for some
Yeah,
Christians.
that's a really good way to put it. I described it sort of as like fan fiction, you know,
Mm. Hmm.
and also being the sort of origin story of Jesus, and I think that's interesting. Always imagined it sort of working as a graphic novel as well, or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally could see that.
Yeah,
Lotfi, Nathan, thank you so much for your time.
thank
And
you.
thank you for this movie. Congratulations. The Carpenter's Son is available, I assume, in theaters.
Yes, November 14th.
Go see it. Check it out. Lotfi, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I like your T-shirt, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Getting rupees over here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, we're back. I've got more for you this month, as I also got the chance to chat with Max Walker Silverman, the director of a new film called Rebuilding. Letterboxd will tell you that after wildfires take his ranch, a cowboy named Dusty winds up in a FEMA camp, finding community with others who lost homes, including his daughter and ex-wife. Although that's not entirely true, his ex-wife and daughter did not lose their home, but he is rebuilding a relationship with them. You know what? Here's what I'll tell you. Rebuilding is beautiful. It's beautifully shot. It's got a beautifully tender story at its heart. And it is superbly acted with a beautiful performance by Josh O'Connor, who is having a moment in Hollywood these days with recent star turns in Challengers, La Chimera, The History of Sound, The Mastermind, and the upcoming Knives Out movie, Wake Up Dead Man. As for my guest, Max, he is one of the more genuine and humble interviews I've had doing this show. I felt like he really took the time to carefully consider all of my questions, and he struck me as a future filmmaker that's incredibly easy to root for. Just a thoughtful and sensitive artist. He's got a handful of movies under his belt at this point, starting with his debut Lefty Righty back in 2019. So what happens when a director flies out to Colorado to make a movie with one of the hottest up-and-coming actors working right now? Find out when I keep things under the stole with Max Walker Silverman. But first, here's a trailer for Rebuilding.
I know about the ranch.
The way the bank sees it, there's no farm here to borrow against for a house, and no house here to borrow against for a farm.
I'm gonna be staying somewhere else, just for the time being.
What's the Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi? How's your mom?
Mom said you didn't apply yourself.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
She don't need my help with nothing.
I know you feel like nothing right now, but to her, you're reborn. You ain't earned it, but that's how it is.
Hey there, I'm Mila.
Dusty.
Where was your spot?
Up in the hills there?
Yeah, we were all up in them hills.
Why you here now?
Just between spots, you know. I'm gonna build this part back just the way it was.
There's a sorrow in the wind.
I bet I could be one.
You and what?
A cowboy.
I can hear it cry.
Keep remembering things that are gone. It makes me feel like there are things we lost that I'll never remember, you know?
I'm only halfway home to where I'll find the thing that
Even after everything, I don't like anywhere better.
I've got a wide river to cross.
Some people lost everything. I still got stuff.
Okay then, begin again.
Congratulations on the film. I hope you're having a good time promoting it right now.
Yeah, one is always lucky to share something with the world, you know.
Absolutely. So there's an aspect of this film that feels really personal. Have you been personally affected by wildfires?
Uh, in a sense, I haven't like lost my home.
Yeah.
But this film did spark when my grandmother's house burned down in 2020.
Hmm.
Out in a different place, in California,
Yeah.
particularly crazy fire season they were having there. And it was a place that I don't know, I really associated it with my childhood. It was like this beautiful place I would go as a kid, and it was like so green and lovely, and there was a spring-fed stream, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, like really kind of like a place of magic and fairy tales, and um, it was like so sad to hear that, that it was gone, and my sister was there when it burned and like just barely got out, and it was all pretty freaky, and I delayed going back for a long time because I was just like so scared to see it different.
Yeah.
And then like a couple months had gone by the time I did go finally see it all, and it was black and sad. But what I had not anticipated was that it was also just like covered in flowers and like the beginnings of regrowth.
Yeah.
And it was so fascinating, like
Mhm.
just so fascinating seeing what nature was doing in the wake of that, like a severe fire, that like there's almost no space for the sadness of it in a crazy way. And then in sort of the months and years that have followed, like my mom has really taken stewardship of the land and like really worked to bring it back to life. And like the neighborhood has kind of like come together, and not there's a yurt on the land now, like there's not a house, but anyway, it was just this like
Yeah.
is a fascinating thing, and it sort of became like the parable of this film, which I guess was like my own trying to figure out like what's my home gonna be, like what's my life gonna be like in a freaky world, and um found some kind of medicine in like the reinvention that
Yeah.
happened after that fire.
Yeah, that is just the way that you describe that story. It echoes with this movie in the sense that there's this generational component to it, right? The sense that this is his parents' land, their land before, it's just this, and it's gone in your generation. How do you process that, right? The fact that
Oh,
this sat there for so long and now you're the one that has to see it end. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And yeah, and like the weight of legacy and sort of concepts of stewardship,
Hmm.
are obviously particularly strong and probably in the West, although I'm sure all over the world, and certainly in agricultural communities all over the world. Um, but on like the flip side, when you like actually sort of let that history speak to you, you're reminded that like, oh yeah, like all that land burned like when it was my great 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 grandfather's in like 1907.
Hmm.
And it will burn again too, and like all the
Right.
work it's doing and like the things she's building there again, those are also temporary, and it's melancholy, but it's not full darkness, that sort of like bigger picture ecology.
I will say though that there does sort of feel like, especially nowadays, that there are some factors that are kind of outside of your control. I mean, yeah, there's this natural sort of flow to the world, but there's also exacerbating issues that we're doing with like climate change and corporate mismanagement of these lands and stuff like that, where it's almost like we're kind of setting ourselves up for disaster, especially out west with these ranchers.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, when you think about this movie and you think about sort of like the warning that kind of exists in this movie. Do you see that? Do you see this as like a warning for what could happen if we keep going down this sort of road of climate change, ignoring climate change and stuff like that? Or is it kind of like this is just the new state of the world? I'm just telling the story as I see it coming to me.
I think I suppose, I mean, that's like that question gets to the heart of all of it, because like what you describe is like the vexing dichotomy of a lot of what we call natural disasters, but fires, certainly hurricanes as well, of like these are ones so natural and even necessary for these ecosystems and like totally distorted by human choices.
Yeah.
And and I don't know, yeah, like I guess I was thinking, growing up, climate change was always like it was like this thing on the horizon, and it was presented as, all right, we either stop it or we fail to stop it.
Hmm.
And the sad truth is to a large degree, like we did fail to stop it.
Yeah.
Not we, like some bad people made it that way. And so, but I don't know, because like I hope like we also we need to keep up that fight, and
Right.
like to save what we can and to protect those we can, because of course, like the people who pay the highest price are those least responsible. But I also in the film was like wanted to make something that's not like looking at climate change as something down the road, but it's like from within it. And specifically like what I was thinking about was like, man, I sometimes have felt so hopeless about this thing.
Hmm.
And the whatever conversation was so dark that I just was like, it's like, I'm never gonna have kids. Like if you'd asked me when I was 15 what I'd be doing at age 32, I'd said, I don't know if there'll be like a world, and of course the world is rough, but there is one and it's a beautiful day outside also. And so there was like some effort, I think, to like some part of the movie was like, all right, we have to imagine a future and believe in it and like have hope for it, because that's what gives you the fuel to fight, to like go back to like the harder work of
Hmm.
still like trying to curb CO2 emissions, which is like God knows not done. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's like the mental part, the political part, the scientific part. This piece is the artistic part, which is like the imagination part. So I don't know if that answers you. Like I don't have an answer to the question. That's why you like make art, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. To try to wrestle with it a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, that's kind of what the art does, right? Speaking of that sort search for hope, though, golly, man, the actors that you have in this. I mean, we got to talk about the Josh O'Connor of it all, right? Like, when did he get on your radar? When were you like, I got to have this guy in my project?
Um, I, I was aware of him as just like a great actor from The Crown and God's Own Country. And then as I was really working on trying to figure out how to cast this role, and there's all this stuff of like you want someone who's just like truly a good actor, because it's hard to make a character moving when they have so little dialogue and stuff, and it takes a lot of skill. Um, and also like didn't want like some beefed up kind of superhero, um and I heard that Josh was doing a movie with Alice Rohrwacher, who's kind of like my hero, this Italian filmmaker, and it's like that just seemed like such an interesting bit of casting that kind of like brought me back to his work. And um it's like, man, this might be the guy. And the other thing that he brought was just like a lot of heart and kindness, which
Mhm.
sort of sounds like a triviality, but is actually like a really rock hard necessity on this sort of like remote project, and with a lot of non-actors and kids and just like all these things that like really need a nice person at the heart of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like you've got to sell that you're a rancher who's been working your entire life, like out here on this land, but you're also like this guy who's really trying to reconnect with his daughter. And, that, like the title says, that idea of rebuild, right? And how do you rebuild relationship at the same time that you're rebuilding your outside life, right? And you got to find someone who can work in that complexity. And I got to tell
Yeah.
you, like La Chimera was one of my favorite movies, like the year that it came out. And you talk about complexity, this guy just nails it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny like the different ways you try and chase down something that like will come across as real, because like I also work with a lot of real cowboys and stuff in the movie and all, but it's not like it's entirely real to like take someone like that and put a camera in their face and a microphone above their head. Like it's all sort of like different angles of artifice, you know, and like you hope that there's enough craft that it comes together and feels honest somehow.
On the selling side, like you've got to move. I mean, you know, one of the things about movies, and I mean, this is one of those things. It's like it's art, but it's like commercial art, you know. So it's going into a marketplace and all that stuff. So there's got to be a side of you that just kind of gets a little geeked when you've got, you know, an actor in his groove like Josh O'Connor, but then you've also got Amy Madigan, who you don't see very often, but boy, she's got her own sort of like Oscar buzz right now, right? And it's like and now you've got this project with both of them going out, and you've got to feel a little jazzed about what that means for your movie, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm very happy for them. Like they deserve everything everything that they'll get and more, you know. So uh yeah, thrilled, but it's not.
I love it. Can I ask you? I don't think I have a whole lot of time left, but I'm just curious, as like a filmmaker, um, you know, working in the industry right now, where do you see the role of indie film making these days? I mean, so frequently we hear about this market that's like blockbuster and awards fair and stuff, and it's like I remember 30 years ago you could find indies at like the theaters and stuff like that, but now it feels like they live more in a streaming marketplace than they do in theaters and stuff. I just wonder, like, when you put a film out like this, how are you hoping that it finds people?
I do like I still like watching movies in theaters, and like this film is at its best when you're in a room with lots of people and you can like feel their experience of it. Like that's just magical and irreplaceable. But you know, I also like live in a town that doesn't have a movie theater, so
Right. Yeah.
I can't pretend like that's the only way anyone should ever watch something, you know? Like, and if it weren't for the internet and my TV, like I wouldn't watch anything ever almost. So I guess, you know, I don't know, like clearly the time of film being like the center of the universe is kind of over, you know, but that's also, I guess, technically true of books, and I still like books, and they're like still a rich part of life. The process of making them is still something special, and like, I guess I do believe that like as long as your goal is not to like make something that everyone in the world is going to be talking about at the same time, and like if you make something for the people who want it, like people can still find it. And you know, I'm grateful to whatever, to like Bleecker Street for taking this film, and they're gonna put it in movies all over the country, and that's like a there's something kind of crazy about that. But I appreciate that they're doing it. I don't know. I guess all I know is like I like movies and they move me and they're part of my life, and I don't think I'm the only one. And I think as long as that's true, and as long as we like choose to keep watching them and like choose to resist like the allure of the scroll, the endless phone scroll, like, these things can't exist and must.
This is a beautiful film. This is like, I mean, and the way that you describe that idea of like, you know, the movie, you know, the movie finding its place, it reminds me of what you were saying at the very beginning of this conversation when you were like, you know, the flowers growing in the midst of the ashes and stuff. It's like what we inherited, we can still make these flowers in the middle. And you just hope that like people find this gorgeous movie in the midst of all of that. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if it meant anything to anyone, like
yeah.
that's kind of like I that doesn't satisfy capitalism, I know, but at some other spiritual
Okay.
level, you know,
It's
that
okay. Yeah. Max, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And Rebuilding is available in theaters. Go to your local theater and watch it. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You, Greg. It's a pleasure.